It's another edition of Musical Shenanigans. And here it is, the 9th installment. That means we're here to dine you, wine you, and entertain you for the 9th time. Today's experiment, straight from Deep 13, is a journey where post-editing gets lazy and leaves a lot less to the imagination. And now, here's Dave, Cory, and Scott. Okay, welcome back. This is Cory.
And this is Dave.
And this is Scott. Praise Satan.
Praise Satan.
Praise Satan! Oh, sorry.
All right, we're back in the Thunderdome again.
No, we're not. No. Wait, but which era Tina Turner are we talking, though? Is it still the 80s?
We don't need another hero.
You know what? Let's just go with Acid Queen Tina Turner from Tommy. Can we all agree on that?
Wow. Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
We're back to our head-to-head combat, our musical battleship.
Arr! Draw your blades, you scurvy dogs! We're bored.
Musical deathmatch.
To the death!
This week, Marilyn Manson. Oh, wait.
This week, we have Portishead Dummy up against Kate Bush, Hounds of Love in round 1. In round 2, the Zombies, Odyssey or Odessi, and Oracle up against a tribe called Quest, the Low End Theory.
Yo! Kick it! Oh, sorry.
Update, we now have an email address. It is m.shenanigan21, because we can't get our own name. So m.shenanigan21, old enough to party.
That's Michael
at gmail.com.
Michael Shenanigan.
Yep. Yes, Michael Shenanigan. He's 21 and ready
He's a
to
fine
party.
Irish lad. Aye.
Yes, he
likes
is.
fighting, fucking, and drinking.
They're trying to steal me Lucky Charms.
And not in that order.
Damn right.
Or he does in that order. Oh, dear
he
God.
fucks while he fights. He fights while he fucks. Maybe he does. Who knows?
All right. So we got an email.
Scufflers. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yes, I'll jump in. We have an email. And for those of you who, unlike us, are under the age of 40 and no longer use email, we're also on the Twitters. You can also tweet to us or follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle that we just launched recently is m_shenanigan. So that's at m_shenanigan. Log on there, check us out, follow us, get updates about the show, and tweet to us. Hey, tell us stuff. If you got feedback, we want to hear it.
All right. So on to round 1. Scott will be defending Portishead, and Dave will be defending Kate Bush.
Scott, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Seriously? Well, I don't hate Kate Bush. I'm going to start out with that. To be honest, I thought Hounds of Love is like 10 years ahead of what it is and should be. It's a fantastic album. Beautiful album. Love that fucking album. But let me say this. Portishead, Dummy. It's the Tres Leches cake of this music. It's layered, it's smooth, it's groove-filled. They were considered pioneers of trip-hop, and this is their 94 release, their second album, I think. Also, Beth Gibbons, the vocalist for them, she was once described as Billie Holiday fronting Susie and the Banshees. I thought that was a perfect way to describe her, because that's about right. And it's like stoner music, but it has more of an LSD vibe to it. Hearken unto my feet, children, and sip the nectar of my weirdom. Yes, I have a story for you. It is a story of Gemini Lee, who was a hooker, a lady of questionable virtue, yes, who thought she had a magic bike. Well, it might have been a bike, but more likely it was a cow. Sources vary some at this point. So, anyway, Gemini Lee and her magic cow, or bike. Anyway, she wrote it while listening to her favorite band, the Pixies. Yes, the Pixies. Soon enough, images of Eminem were wafting into her brain, and she thought she needed clarity and purpose. Well, everyone that knew Gemini Lee knew that she was a skinwalker at night. And not a skinwalker because she was a hooker, but because she was a skinwalker. You know, the type that turns into a fucking coyote. Every third Wednesday, Gemini Lee would eat oatmeal, but only with a spoonful of honey in it. She liked the color orange, which may be a little bit strange, but that's fine. And she liked sheep, the yakuza, and the turtle that is not green. So Gemini Lee was indeed a skinwalker hooker. And the moral of the story is that you should not whistle when you are pissing.
What just happened there?
So I think Scott's on a different podcast right now, actually. I think he's...
I was talking about Portishead.
Oh!
Yeah.
You were?
Dummy, fantastic album. That's what it put me in.
It is. I won't question you on that one. It actually is a fantastic album. It's awesome. I mean, could say it's a little bit dated, but I'll come back to that theme a couple of times.
You could say Kate Bush was dated.
I will say this about Portishead. It takes an incredible amount of self-confidence to put out an album like this.
That's true.
They were incredibly confident about what they were doing because it was not clear at all that people were going to accept this. All right, so we talked a little bit about Portishead and the possibility that at this point it sounds a little dated. And I will acknowledge that every album is kind of a product of its own time, but every once in a while you get an album that seems kind of unmoored from time entirely. And when Hounds of Love came out in 1985, it was kind of like nothing anybody had ever heard, and even to this day it still sounds really remarkably original. Kate Bush's last album had not gone well, and for 3 years she just kind of vanished. People were speculating that she was ill, maybe she put on weight and didn't want to be photographed. Maybe she realized she couldn't compete with Madonna, and so she just given up altogether. For a while, the only time the media ever really mentioned her name at all was when they were running some sort of Where Are They Now piece. But nobody really realized that Kate Bush wasn't retiring. She was regrouping. She had bought a house in the English countryside and had immersed herself in things that brought her pleasure: her animals, literature, films, travel, and most importantly, building her own recording studio where she could experiment for as long as she wanted with no record company standing over her shoulder complaining about the cost. That meant plenty of time to play around with her new favorite toy, a Fairlight CMI synthesizer, the latest musical technology that offered a seemingly endless menu of new sounds and rhythms. The Fairlight was a game changer. Some artists were so inspired by its new innovative sounds that their albums became technological futuristic explorations, but not Kate. For Kate, the Fairlight was a powerful new weapon in the arsenal, but it was there to supplement, not replace. She started using the Fairlight with traditional Irish folk instruments, as well as rich, complex, layered vocals to create these deep soundscapes that became then the background for her own unique voice. Her voice lived somewhere between pop and opera and belting out lyrics that were unmistakably inspired by all those films, book, and art she'd been taking in. Hounds of Love's title track sampled dialogue from the 1957 movie Night of Demons. The public ate it up. Out of 5 songs on side A, all but 1 became hits. And then there was side B. You flipped the album over, and listeners discovered that the entire second half was a concept piece called The Ninth Wave. Inspired by a painting called the Hogsmith Ophelia, The Ninth Wave uses a series of songs to tell the story of a woman lost at sea, clinging to a life jacket and waiting for help to arrive. It was inventive and original and dramatic, and to be fair, it didn't always work, but it was unparalleled in its ambitiousness and its scope. Kate Bush wasn't gone. She was merely planning a surprise party, and it turned out to be one of those parties that was so good that 35 years later, everyone's still talking about that night.
Wow. You know, and to be honest, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I'm not going to slag Kate at all. Baked Good was the eclair, sweet and creamy, but it has something secret inside.
I have to say, I really did like this album. I had forgotten it. And the theme tonight, just so you're aware, is all of these different types of music that keeps coming up. I've had to go in and dig up definitions. She was considered post-prog, and it's a movement described as being 1970s prog, so they're trying to differentiate themselves. It's acknowledging new forms of avant-garde and popular music since the 1970s. It's a post-prog of influences actually came from Hendrix, Zappa, King Crimson, and even in there, the Beatles. And foremost in this movement, mentioned last week, Brian Eno.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we get the Talking Heads from, and everything else that he has touched post-prog. In fact, I always think about Kate Bush as being on Peter Gabriel's So, doing Don't Give Up. She also did backing vocals on his third album. They were all named Peter Gabriel, but it's the one with his face melting, so they call it Melt.
She was singing Melting Faces in the background.
Well, no, she was on the songs No Self-Control and Games Without Frontiers.
Dude, really? You spoiled it. You spoiled it.
No, I felt like we needed the accuracy. I didn't want someone to go back.
Yeah, I actually think the first time I heard Kate Bush was actually on the So album on that track Don't Give Up. And I was like, what is this?
Yes.
Who is this person?
Yep.
And that was my gateway to finding her other stuff.
Me too.
It's kind of interesting that we ended up, and you know, we've said this in the show before, we pick these songs at random. It's kind of interesting that we ended up putting Kate Bush up against Portishead because honestly, Kate Bush has this really unique voice that nobody else can do, just like Beth Gibbons from Portishead has this really unique, interesting voice that nobody else can do.
Yes, exactly. They both have beautiful voices.
And another thing I found was, in Guinness Book of World Records, she's the first woman with a #1 album that wrote all the music and all the lyric. I mean, she was doing it all.
Yeah.
And just amazing.
Including the video piece. Including the video piece. Because, like, of course, 1985 was like the big... those mid-'80s were the big moment for music videos.
That's
and
true.
she was really into... because of how much she loved film and art and visual art, she was really into the video piece, and I think every video that came off of this album, she conceived and directed, basically.
I mean, you see her dancing, you're like, wait a minute. I mean, she looks like she should be on the stage.
Watch the video for Running Up That Hill. She was an amazing dancer. I say was because I don't know if she can still move like that today. It's been quite a while. It was phenomenal dancing in that video.
Now we go over to Portishead. So what they pretty much started was something called trip hop.
Right.
Yeah.
And it actually started out of Bristol. It was them and Massive Attack and another artist named Tricky who was in Massive Attack.
Yeah.
Trip hop is a fusion of hip hop and electronica. That fusion includes funk, dub, soul, psychedelia, R&B, and house. I went and looked up dub. I was like, all right, I've heard it all these years, but I've always just kind of said it. So it's a derivative of reggae. It's the instrumental remixes. That's what dub is. It's the stripped down rhythm. So it's only the echoing vocal, but it's mostly the riffs of the reggae. And the vocals are just kind of like a second thought. And then house is electronic dance. So it's that whole 4 on the floor. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, the kind of thing every white person can dance to.
You said 4 on the floor, though.
4 on the floor. That's what it's called. 4 bass drum kicks in a row, because that's what makes people move. But Portishead are the ones that really popularized the trip hop.
Yes.
And part of this, too, was Beth Gibbons, and her vocals come through. They're amazing. It is very reminiscent of like an old standard. It feels like a 60s... Oh my God, there's only 5 people in the world that can read my handwriting, and unfortunately I'm not one of them.
I understand that.
It has a 60s feeling in the vocals, and also like a bossa nova backbeat. The background creates something of an ambiance one would find at a casual, swanky cocktail and key party in the 1970s, Soho. And when I say swanky, I mean swinging with a little hanky and a little panky. This was before disco, where people... that were the hippies, but much more sophisticated, or at least pretending to be more sophisticated with their hi-fis and Herb Albert albums, what today we call hipsters.
Yeah, there's one critic that I was reading about reviewing Portishead. He described Portishead as Sade for androids.
Yeah. But I love Sade's voice, though. She's fantastic. Another she kind of goes under a lot of radar, too.
Cory, you mentioned like all these pieces that kind of make up the trip-hop genre, these subgenres that came together. Portishead is probably and this album in particular is a great example of that, because you have Gibbons singing, which is that sort of like jazzy, club, smooth singing. You've got the other guy like scratching records and doing samples in the background. And then you have the guitar player who's playing like he just came off of a James Bond soundtrack. And somehow all of these 3 things like come together and work, even though in theory they shouldn't.
And that whole background noise, Adrian Utley, his inspiration is more of an Ennio Morricone. No, not Morricone.
Who did it? Who's
Ennio Morricone, the spaghetti western soundtracks.
So many movies with classic soundtracks that were composed by that guy.
Yes. And that's where this guy creates a lot of his ambiance and a lot of that background feel from.
Absolutely.
We're going to go cut to commercial, and after that, Cory will be rendering his decision between these 2 albums.
Is it a skinwalker or is it a hooker? You tell me.
Hi there, this is post-production Cory with a quick little correction. Kate Bush received her Guinness Book of World Records by being the first female in pop history to write a million-selling debut album in 1978 with the self-penned The Kick Inside. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my correction. And now, for your commercial, I bring back the spot that was cut for Big Richard's Meatoporium and Fine Dining, because it was taken out for your listening pleasure. And now, I'm bringing it back for your listening pleasure. I got invited to a special ceremony of sorts. Group of people, we met at the back. of the restaurant, and they let us into this other building, like right behind it, down like 3 flights of stairs. There's 2 rooms downstairs. One's a men's room, one's a ladies' room. I'm already wondering what the hell's going on. You go in there, and they're locker rooms. So we're supposed to put all of our personal effects and all of our clothes into these lockers, and then they just give you this one terry cloth robe. Really nice material. A bib and a towel. And then you go out the other back door, and it's this huge atrium. And it's a large round table, and in the middle it's this big spit with this big pig on like 2 spits. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And everyone sits down. All of a sudden, everyone just starts taking their robes off. I mean, they're just like taking them off from the top and laying them down and putting these bibs on. I mean, ladies, men, everybody. I'm getting a little scared because this is feeling like Eyes Wide Shut. And after doing the math, the men to women ratio was not in my favor, but it turned out okay. Everyone starts chanting, porca vaca, porca vaca. I'm like, I don't know what the hell this is. Apparently it's Italian for pig cow, and it's a curse word too. I had the waiter right behind me explaining to me. He goes, all right, now look up. And he goes, you have to understand, this pig has been crammed on both sides with a lot of meat. Okay, that's the pork cow, gotcha. And then we've got 2 spits into it, one from the front and one from the back, and they meet like right in the center, right above the fat back. It looks like 2 swords crossing each other. What's really kind of disgusting is they have all the juices, all the grease running down the shaft of each of these spits into gravy boats. Then they pass these gravy boats around. So I'm thinking you're supposed to pour this over your food, because when they go up, they cut the pig and you get like this big slab of ham with a big hamburger on it. I mean, it was phenomenal, don't get me wrong, but people are passing around this gravy boat. Everyone's sipping from it. They take like little sips, and they got it running down all over their chins. I'm like, oh, this would really get all over your clothes. You're like, that's why we've got the bibs and the towels, because when you're trying to drink out of this damn thing, it's like pouring out of a teapot where shit just gets all over the sides, and it's all over you, and it's so thick with all this grease and fat. It's really hard to swallow. You quickly just want to like pass it, and you look around, everyone's just got it like all over their chins and all over their chests. It's just disgusting. But let me tell you, in the end, it was amazing. And this is why everyone just calls it the double, because it's DM, DP, DA. Double meat, double piercings, because they want to bring up the fact that they, collect the gravy boats, and double loss. But I will not be doing this again. And now I've had a really difficult time, because I made a lot of notes. I spent a lot of time with both of these albums because I knew I would be the one ultimately choosing. Kate Bush is solid. I really like her writing. I like a lot of what she did. She is incredibly innovative. I think that she was on the album and I think there's a reason for it. I think a lot of the sounds that Peter Gabriel then went to with that album were probably inspired by this album, because it did come out before it. Because Peter Gabriel was doing a lot more less accessible songs, in the first
one
3
might even
albums.
say this was the genesis of Peter Gabriel.
Oh God. Portishead, and I have to go back to my own arguments of pioneering and bringing forth something. What they brought, this whole trip hop, its own genre in and of itself, that wins them the title in this round.
Ooh. Gemini Lee is the winner!
I'm not going to complain, because I did love that album. However, I will point out we have another upset on our hands. Rolling Stone ranked Dummy at 131. They ranked Hounds of Love by Kate Bush at 68. So Cory just shook up the rankings quite a bit.
And I had to take that into consideration too. And trust me, Kate Bush against pretty much anybody else would have probably been a knockout.
Yeah.
This one was really hard. I mean, both of them incredibly innovative, incredibly creative, bringing a lot of different sounds, especially Kate, with a lot of the different kind of instrumentation and all. But I have to go back to I have to quote myself when I say it pioneered. It was a difference. It was a step forward in a different kind of music. It was experimental, and it worked.
Frankly, I was really glad not to have to judge that one. I was really glad, because
they're both phenomenal albums. There's no question.
Yeah, exactly. So
they truly are. Okay, so let's.
So Cory,
yep,
Skinwalker, Hooker.
I've never heard that phrase, but I put it together. I mean,
Skinwalker. The name just kind of makes my skin crawl. I'm gonna have to go with the Hooker.
Okay, well there you go. All right.
Yeah,
good to know.
Even if it means it's like double bagging Wednesdays at Winn-Dixie,
it might well be. Paper only, though.
Okay, so now into round 2. Dave will have the zombies, and I will have a Tribe Called Quest.
Absolutely. We will give Scott a few moments here to change into his judge's robes.
Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Are we ready to rumble? We have these zombies in this corner wearing the green or whatever color trunks they're wearing of Audacy or however the fuck they spell that. And yes, and a Tribe Called Quest in this corner wearing the black trunks with the blood all over them. Aren't they? They're so sexy though. Oh. Let it be a fight.
You know, the iambic pentameter B doth mine, a bit I'm tied to every fucking time.
There, just a reminder, round 1 involves 128 albums.
Ding, ding, ding! Cue the iambic.
Yes, cue up the music, here we go. Into Thunderdome, 2 doth enter here, the zombies in a tribe called Quest to fear. A row of unjust inequality, for zombies in 500 should not be. The tribe greater superiority. Bearing chainsaws and late-night Ginsu knives, 'gainst that of zombie gun that goes pop, pop. Mastication of brains better would be, alas, 'tis their own grey matter consumed. A Tribe Called Quest doth trailblaze alt-hip-hop, deemed alt-hop, not Fibonacci hopscotch. A sound unclothed to that of bass and drum, the low in theory influencer be. A deep-planted root in the hip-hop tree. Dr. Dre, the Roots, and Outkast do say, this work did inspire and conspire contributors more of their hip-hop art. Kanye doth forswear ancestry here as well. Twixt his ear and his mouth, a connection not. At least as far as I can very well tell. Q-Tip and Fifer Dog do jest with words, masters of syllables and sharp rhyme. In lunge, parry, flunge, and beat they do spar, crossing and dueling in magnificence, for within their words is a perfect dance. Zombies again, I have more which to say. Time of the season, I know it quite well. Remainder of misspelled Odessi, sigh. For want of music it doth disappoint. A flop of belly upon the water doth a better sound make than this vinyl. A loud musical plea for brains. 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 Neglected thus, and without flotation, a Tribe Called Quest, sweet rapping sirens, wouldst to dark depths drown the Walking Dead, or to Rocket I would concur we strap. I yield.
Damn, dude, you get better and better. You're getting really good at that.
I know we spent a lot of time last show and already on this show, like bagging on Scott for the visual references on a podcast. I will point out for listeners, Cory is actually wearing a William Shakespeare t-shirt right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hearken to his nerddom.
He is 100% committed to this bit, goddammit, whether you like it or not.
I did it as a one-off, but here we are. So, your turn.
Yeah, all right. This is not going to be iambic pentameter, and it's not going to be about hookers, but we'll do our best here. All right, so
maybe a skinwalker.
No, not a skinwalker.
Damn, Dave, it feels like you're not trying.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead, tell us what you think about the zombies.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the obvious elephant in the room here. This is an album that has not aged well. When this album came out, psychedelic rock was all the rage. Every act was doing it. You had Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles. You had Jefferson Airplane's Surrealistic Pillow. The Beach Boys had their Pet Sounds. Even the Rolling Stones got in on this with an album called Their Satanic Majesty's Request. Bottom line, 67, 68, psychedelic music was huge. And Odyssey of the Oracle, I will submit to you, is one of the strongest moments of that movement. The instrumentation here is inventive and flawless. The vocals and harmonies are stellar. The only problem here is that it didn't last. It was mind-blowing when it premiered, but psychedelia got predictable. It got stale. Moreover, people sobered up. Psychedelic music was really always meant for drug use. Strawberry Fields is a great song, but you add a couple of bong hits or a little LSD and it becomes an entire journey. When this album came out in 1968, it did not resonate in the UK. There was so much psychedelic music out there already that it just didn't register with the public. And the band actually split up without ever once playing the album for a live audience. Rod Argent and Chris Wright moved on and they formed a new band called Argent, which went on to have hits with songs like Hold Your Head Up and God Gave Rock and Roll to You. 2 years later, Time of the Season, Odyssey and Oracle's closing track, however, becomes this hit in the US. But by that point, the psychedelic movement was already fading, and the Zombies had ceased to exist. In a radio-driven era where most people had no idea what their favorite artists even looked like, you had unscrupulous promoters who rushed in and pulled together fake bands to give concerts under the Zombies name. Over time, however, more and more people went back to revisit this album, and it started getting this steady cult following. But that cult following was limited to an increasingly smaller and smaller group who could look past the cliched psychedelic stylings and appreciate the talent and execution. Every album is a product of its own time. Sinatra sounds like an outdated lounge singer today, but against his backdrop at his time, he was stunning. Even A Tribe Called Quest with Low End Theory broke the mold in the 90s for hip-hop, but today it sounds a little thin considered to the highly produced sounds that we use today. Not to mention the repeated references to Arsenio Hall and an entire song dedicated to the importance of one's pager. In the half century since Odyssey and Oracle came out, the music world has moved on. Stylistically, it's easy to laugh off a lot of these songs as trite little what the hell were we thinking stereotypes that could have easily been the B-side to Spinal Tap's Listen to the Flower People. But go back and listen to it again. Try to cast that aside. Listen to the crisp instrumentation, to the vocals, to the experimentation. And if you still find yourself laughing it all off, consider the possibility that your real complaint isn't actually with the Zombies, but merely with the passage of time itself.
Well, let's also mention that the title of the album, Odyssey and Oracle, it was a misspelling.
It was.
By the printer, was it?
The graphic designer who did the artwork.
The band just had to roll with it. So much so that they even came up with a story for it or something.
Yeah. So they went out and they would get questions about, like, why did you spell it this way? And they went, like, with the Pee Wee Herman approach. Yeah, I meant to do that. Just basically pretending that it was intentional. Yeah, it's a shitty mistake that you know, as an artist, you would have preferred not to happen. But you're really going to hold it against them for being nice guys and covering up for the graphic designer here?
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like they should have been twats, but whatever.
Quite honestly, I don't hear a lot of the psychedelia
I didn't either.
It seemed very repetitive. It sounded just very like we go back to a lot of like the cookie cutter stuff. Time of the Season is an anomaly on this album.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Then they go and they put the Shakespeare quote on the back of their album from The Tempest. Okay, no, I find it actually rather fitting. It's from the character Caliban, the uncivilized man of the island.
Told you Cory was committed to this Shakespeare bit.
Oh, you knew it was going to happen. He goes on about, you hear all these sounds and everything, but don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. But when you get to the last three lines, which, by the way, it's in blank verse because he's supposed to be uncivilized, so he doesn't do iambic pentameter, for the record. What is interesting is the last three lines is basically how I went into this album. I knew Time of the Season. And he ends with, the clouds methought would open and show riches. In other words, I thought there'd be more to this album, ready to drop upon me, that when I waked, I cried to dream again. So I was expecting more Time of the Season, and instead, I got whatever the rest of that shite was.
So Shakespeare didn't write What's Your Name, Who's Your Daddy?
He might have.
Who is thy daddy?
Yes, I think that was in Hamlet. Ophelia, who is thy daddy?
Oh, feel this, yeah.
So I really have nothing more to say on Zombies. You, Scott?
Well, since I'm having to judge this thing, I did listen to both albums, and
well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but that's beside the point, I thought, because it was painful. It was like the Zombies were like a dry white cupcake, just crumbly and slightly stale, and I mean, it didn't even have an old shoe taste or anything. There was just like nothing. It was like maybe there was some like somebody's leftover chicken from last week in there. Maybe I don't know what the fuck that was. That because that was the only surprise. It was like, oh, Time of the Season. Oh yeah, I've heard that before because they overplayed it on the radio back when radio was owned by. Anyway, so yeah, and if you have green lollipops and marmalade skies, the wasps don't want to fly into the east at night anymore. So A Tribe Called Quest was more like a sticky toffee pudding. Like, it was thick and dense and rich and just delicious, really. I mean,
God, I'm hungry.
You just can't beat salted caramel, dude. You just can't beat it.
That does sound good.
It does. And honestly, that's why, I felt like, the color orange was just more vibrant than, say, green in this respect, if you know what I mean.
No.
A Tribe Called Quest.
Okay. All right.
I think they already had their answer to this album in the song Show Business. Go get yourself some toilet paper because your lyrics are
But yeah, I will admit I laughed out loud at that line.
That is brilliant. Yeah, some tribe stuff was like their rapping is just like hilarious. Like, okay,
and it's a great combination between Q-Tip and Pfeiffer Dog. And Q-Tip on their first album did most of the rapping, and Pfeiffer Dog didn't do as much. And yet on this one, he shows up and he's great.
Yeah, that Q-Tip knew how to lay down some hot wax.
But here we go again. Alternative rap, or experimental hip-hop, is a subgenre of hip-hop. It combines funk, pop rock, jazz, soul, reggae, folk. Does not include gangsta, bass, hardcore, or party rap.
Yeah, I think alternative hip hop was basically this term that record companies came up with to say, "Hey, it's not gangster rap. This is hey, white people in the suburbs. Right. This is the safe rap that you can let your kids listen to."
Right, and there was two things. There was a lot less profanity.
Oh, yeah.
But when they asked Q-Tip about it, he says, we're addressing real issues here, which they did. They took on a lot of social commentary. But alternative rap, they said, tends to be embraced by alternative rock listeners as opposed to hip-hop or pop audiences.
Interesting.
Jack White is credited as being inspired by this album.
God, I hate that guy.
Really?
I can't stand the White Stripes. What a bunch of garbage. Jack White is... Like, I have him tied up and ball gagged by Kanye and fucking Jewel. And in fact, I have him like Jewel shoving something in Jack White's ass.
On the side of the rocket.
On the side of the rocket, yeah. I mean, just no. I fucking hate that guy. Fuck
that
him.
surprises me. I actually really like Jack White personally.
Oh, God. Yeah. Fuck that guy. No. Bullshit. He's so everything about him is so fake. Ugh.
On a personal level, he is a massive asshole. There's no question.
Uberdouche.
I also wrote down it's a minimalist sound stripped down to vocals, drums, and bass. And where did we just have something stripped down? Portishead.
Oh,
I thought you meant Skinwalker.
No, Gemini Lee wasn't stripped down. She, at night, sometimes she would turn into a Skinwalker while walking down the bike or down the lane with her bike, or possibly a cow. We're not really sure which.
So the trip hop and
depends on which side you go with.
And the alternative hip hop are kind of happening almost around the same time on two different sides of the pond, going in different directions, and yet they're both stripping down everything and going to the core sound.
British were funkier.
I mean, I love when they use Ron Carter, when they're using a real bass player on this. Yeah. That double bass, stand-up bass kind of thing.
Yes.
Versus from the abstract.
That was the first thing that jumped out at me when we got to that track. I think it was Excursions, and you heard the upright, and it's like, ooh, you don't hear that on a lot of hip-hop records.
There's a lot of really good instrumentation on that album. Yes. But hell, Kate Bush did that too, though.
Oh no, absolutely, and that was one of the hardest things I had was in choosing her.
Kate Bush was closer to like a wall of sound thing. I mean, there's so much going on in the background. This is to Cory's point. This is like uber minimalist, broken down,
where you could really tell. Yeah. It's like honestly, it was like the standout. Like Tina Weymouth was very standout Talking Heads there on that album. It's just her bass playing really stood out for once, which it needed to. But anyway, so we shall now deliberate. Or rather, I will now deliberate, and then I'll be back with my decision! Musical shenanigans! Do you like the music, lad?
Do you like podcasts?
Do you like expert analysis of music on podcasts?
Well, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And here it is, Musical Shenanigans. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. So far, we've bribed Apple, Amazon, and iHeart, to name a few.
And we have compromising pictures of the others.
Also, find us on Twitter at @M_shenanigan, because Kanye follows us. Okay, maybe he doesn't.
And now, straight from K-Rock. K-Rock, is that like a radio station?
No, man, like fucking kick-ass rock and roll, man.
Is that like K, as in K-pop?
Oh, fuck that, man. I'm talking about kazoo rock.
K-Rock Records proudly presents the Kazoo Masters of the past, present, and future. Including Thad Humalot, Harmony Mouthstuff Rose, Hum Master D, Willie Blowdat Richard, Engelbert Hum My Dinger, Blind Eye Sammy, MC Humalot, and Master of the Death Metal Kazoo, Hums Darkly. K-Rock Records, the Kazoo Masters.
Kazoo rock.
And we've taken a moment, and I come back, and I give unto you a tribe called Quest.
Not upset. Not upset.
I know. Yeah, sorry.
Kids
It really
listening at
just-
home, I was defending Odyssey and the Oracle because I was supposed to, but that album fucking sucks.
No, you did. You did your job. You did.
It's
Yeah,
not a question
I
of
mean-
it being outdated. It's a question of it being fucking terrible.
Right.
We all tried, but damn, that was a rough listen.
And I mean, it was a perfect dig with the whole Arsenio Hall. He gets mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
It's like someone just kind of thought, if we mention him enough, we can get on his show, which they did.
When I was kind of doing my pre-reading on the Tribe album, there was one review that was written by a guy. I guess he just had his own like website. It was almost like GeoCities kind of deal where he was just writing down whatever came to mind, and he was going through track by track and trying to review them. Guy was a horrible reviewer because it was basically like, oh man, this beat is dope. Oh, that line is dope, just over and over and over again, just like stream of consciousness. Whatever he was hearing was going down on the page, and then he got to Sky Pager and he actually typed. He goes, actually, I don't even know if I know what a pager is. I gotta go. And he goes, I'm going to look that up. And then the next sentence is like, oh, I guess it was like a super complicated way to text.
That's brilliant. That's actually brilliant.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone out there agree or disagree with us, feel free to shoot us old school email at m.shenanigan21@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter
At M_shenanigan.
And you need to tell us if you think that Gemini Lee was either a skinwalker or a hooker. Which one? Yes or no?
on the next show. In the Showdown. In the Showcase.
The Showcase Showdown.
Showcase Showdown.
Actual retail price.
In round one, it will be Curtis Mayfield, Superfly,
Superfly, motherfucker, yeah!
against Mobb Deep, the infamous.
What?
I'm going to reserve judgment because every time we've had a reaction like the one Scott just had, we've ended up being pleasantly surprised.
Exactly.
You're right. I me too.
And in round two, the Eagles with Hotel California,
Oh, God.
up against Laura Nyro, Eli, and the 13th Confession.
Who the fuck?
Welcome to the Rolling Stone Top 500.
Who the fuck is Laura Nyro? And that's against Hotel California, huh?
Yes.
Wow. The gods were not kind. So I'm going to do me. I'm going to stay true to that, and the Eagles will get that treatment. Perhaps I will continue the story of Gemini Lee next time. Yeah, I think I should.
Oh, God. All right, big shout out this week to Evelina Shishka. This is my dentist. She is a fan of our show. She enjoys our antics and has learned a lot from us, and I get a lot of great feedback from her. And she bought us coffee this week.
Thank
Proceeds, yep. Proceeds go to keeping the podcast online, and we made a donation to Wikipedia because, well, we abused the hell out of them.
Thank you, Evelina. We appreciate it.
We
Yes.
do.
So, her choice of who should go on the rocket? Julio Iglesias.
Yes!
That's a pretty good choice.
I will strap Julio down with like 2 ball gags and a big anal plug between Kanye West and
Zombies?
The zombies, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'll just put them in between, scrooge them all in there between the zombies, because man, those motherfuckers are on it too. But yeah, Julio goes. Thank you so much, Doctor. He is on the rocket.
So we will be back next time, and it will be Curtis Mayfield, Superfly, against Mobb Deep, the Infamous. Round 2 will be the Eagles, Hotel California, against Laura Nairo, and I could be pronouncing that wrong, Eli, and the 13th Confession. Again, we have email, m.shenanigan21@gmail.com, and we are on the Twitters.
At m_shenanigan.
So find us, comment, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like.
Try not to be the Owen Help. Tell us who needs to be on that rocket, along with all these other fine folks that I've already mentioned and that other people have mentioned now. Thank you. Thank you so much. And the Eagles, should they? I feel like they should be on the fucking rocket. I mean, Glenn Frey.
Too soon. Too soon.
Anyway.
Too soon. You can't Lebowski this already.
I can't put them on there a little early. It's just like pre-boarding. it's come on, they're rock stars. They'll love that shit.
Oh my God.
Give them the Bezos treatment. Get on, bitches.
Yeah, except Bezos came back.
Yeah.
God damn it.
His didn't make it to the sun.
This is true.
Barely even made it to space.
That's very true.
All right.
He took his giant vibrator to the sky or whatever.
All right. Thank you all again. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
And we will talk to you.
Seacrest out.
Ciao.